Kevin Garnett may have been known as the big ticket.
The competition, the naysayers, the owners who talk too much.
Growing up, he had absolutely nothing, and his only ticket to success and wealth was the conditions created by his family. It all began on May 19, 1976, when Kevin Garnett was born in Grenville, South Carolina, to two people who never married each other. His biological father, O. Lewis McCullough, and mother, Shirley Garnett, ended their relationship immediately after Kevin was born, but let's dive into them and who they were. KG's basketball genes came from his father, McCullough, who was a basketball star in his hometown of Columbia. He wore the number 45 in high school and earned the nickname Bye Bye 45 during the early 1970s. The nickname was derived from how quickly he ran to the opponent's rim during a fast break. However, despite being the captain and star player of Beck High School's basketball team, his skills and size didn't really impress college scouts. They worried about his power and height, which they thought were not impressive enough for college basketball. So after not getting any scholarships, he enlisted in the United States Army, but he didn't really fight in any wars. He just played in the Army League and continued to make a respectable name for himself in the local basketball leagues as well. It was during this time he met Shirley Garnett, but they were both not destined to be a couple. McCullough married another woman named Frances after he and Shirley broke up, and they had already had two sons together. But he didn't abandon Kevin or his mother, as he continued to send them financial support. After McCullough finished his days on the court, he worked at Robert Bosch Corporation, where he made diesel pumps. He fathered four other sons, Christopher, Kenneth, Isaac, and Lewis, who was a basketball player in his own right. Lewis had played ball for a while and was even in line for the 2004 NBA draft, but dropped out and decided to go to college. Kevin got the chance to meet his stepbrothers at some point, but they were never really that close. Nevertheless, McCullough once revealed in an interview that KG sometimes came around to play basketball with him since his stepfather, Ernest Irby, was not very interested in basketball. But not much, if anything, is known about Irby, except for the fact that he and KG didn't really get along, so we'll just finish up with McCullough. Shirley confirmed that McCullough was present, but not enough, and this is why KG once described her as his mom and dad.
I always tell people this, my mom was my mom and my dad.
So, what's the story of this powerful woman that practically played the role of mother and father for her kids? Well, Shirley Garnett's origin is not really known, but it would be understandable if she fell out of the sky considering the kind of powerful and influential son she raised, right? Anyway, she was a Jehovah's Witness and had her first child Sonia and her second Kevin with McCullough. Then she remarried when Kevin was 7 years old to Irby, and they both had a daughter named Ashley. She worked in hotels during the graveyard shifts while also working at a factory in Nickeltown. She and her family later moved to the suburban town of Malden, South Carolina when Kevin was just 12 years old. She then quit working in the factory and kicked off her entrepreneurial career by starting a beauty shop named Me Shop Beauty Salon. And hear this little salon was run inside of her house, and Kevin and his sisters, Ashley and Sonia, were vital parts of the smooth running of the business. Amazing, right? They literally smoothened the floors by sweeping off stray bits of hair from customers. They also washed towels, with Kevin specifically stating in a documentary that he sterilized the combs and took the wraps off the roses. But we don't know if they got paid hourly for their efforts, that is, if you don't count all the food and other benefits they receive from Shirley anyway. If you want anything in this life, you gotta work hard for it. You gotta go out there and get it. So when Kevin fell in love with basketball, he secretly went for tryouts knowing his mom would not actually like the idea. Because as supportive and loving as Shirley was, she wasn't down with her kids doing anything aside from reading their books and getting good grades. And Kevin was kind of scared of his mom for that reason.
There's two things I'm scared of in life, that's God and my mom.
But one day she accidentally knew of her son's basketball game at Malden High through a girl that came to get her hair done in her salon. She was shocked to learn that her kid was playing and actually decided to go see the game though. She wasn't immediately receptive to her discovery, but after some time, she became quite impressed with KG and gave him all of her support. And then something terrible happened. Kevin was charged with second-degree lynching for allegedly taking part in a brawl that ensued between some black kids against a white kid in Malden High. But many thought this was funny because A, they knew Kevin would never get wound up in situations like that, and B, the lynching law was supposed to protect blacks against white mobs. But some reports also argued that Kevin had been part of a group that used rolled up newspapers to beat up a white freshman, which resulted in injuries that took him to the hospital. The incident made headlines in the state, and Kevin was soon released through a pretrial intervention, but the damage was unfortunately already done. Shirley was no longer comfortable living in the town, so she moved the family to Chicago, where Kevin was enrolled at the Farragut Career Academy. This move affected Kevin for a while because he had a lot of family members in South Carolina, especially his grannies that lived just a few blocks away from their former house in Nicholtown. Kevin had discovered his grandparents Mary and Odell McCullough while they were still living in Nicholtown through his cousin Shamond Williams. You might actually know Williams, but if you don't, he was a guard that played in both Europe and the NBA. He was drafted by the Bulls in '96, but ended up playing for 6 other NBA teams, including the Boston Celtics, where Garnett would eventually end up. It was this guy that helped Kevin in discovering the other members of his family, so that even after the Garnetts moved to Malden, Shirley still took him to see his grannies, cousins, and other relatives in South Carolina. But as far as Kevin's sisters are concerned, not much is revealed to the public eye. Well, not much except for the bitter tale about Kevin's younger sister, Ashley Danielle Phelps, who was convicted for armed robbery in 2018. She had robbed a check-into-cash store in Greenville and had threatened the employees that she had a bomb with her, but they weren't fazed and they pressed the panic button, which made her flee without taking anything. So the next day she tried again with 2 more shops before getting arrested by the police. She was 37 years old at the time. But how did this cute and innocent-looking kid get into a messed up life with armed robbery? Well, nobody really knows, since she and Kevin reportedly had fallen out a long time ago. Things appeared to have gone terribly wrong with her. There are, however, some important people that haven't fallen out with Kevin after years of close friendship, including Jamie Peters. Kevin met who would become his best friend for life when he was 4 years old. Kid's name? Jamie Peters, aka Junebug. They sealed their friendship pretty early when the young Junebug gifted Kevin his favorite Mickey Mouse wristwatch. When they grew up to the age where they could wrap their little hands around a basketball, they spent hours on end at the basketball court in Springfield Park. And when KG asked Junebug to accompany him to Chicago, guess what he did? He actually followed him. But Jamie is not the only best buddy of KG. Before Malik Sealy became best friends with Kevin Garnett, the latter had idolized him from afar. While KG was still in high school in the early 1990s, Malik was making a killing at the St. John's University basketball team. Kevin admits that his game changed because he studied Malik's game. But that wasn't all. When Kevin started to play organized basketball, he wore jersey number 21, which was Malik's number. He continued with that number until he was traded to the Boston Celtics, of course. But after Malik finished playing for the Pacers, the Clippers, and the Pistons, he joined the Big Ticket in Minnesota in 1998, and he wore the number 2 since Garnett had already had his number 21. But 2 years later in 2000, Malik was driving home from Kevin's 24th birthday party when his sports car crashed head-on with a pickup truck. He was 30 years old, and the time was 4 a.m. in St. Louis Park, and he didn't make it. When KG signed for the Nets, he honored Malik by wearing the number 2, and this was not the first time he was losing a close friend, unfortunately. He had lost another when he was still in high school, a kid named Eldrick Lehman, who was hit by a car. But Kevin has always had a strong support system because he is surrounded by many loyal buddies who rode for and traveled with him around the world, usually in trendy hip-hop clothes. But aside from making strangers his brothers for life, he also made some adults his surrogate fathers. The Grammy Award-winning songwriter and music-producing pair Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were such fathers. Jam and Lewis were well known for creating historical hits for Janet Jackson and Boyz II Men, and after writing 41 top hits in the United States and 31 in the United Kingdom, they've won 5 Grammy Awards from 11 nominations. So how did KG wind up with music producers as father figures? Was he trying to get into the music industry himself? Well, you see, in KG's rookie season in 1995, the NBA legend was outside a supermarket with Junebug when he spotted Jimmy with his wife Lisa. The two talked for over an hour, and from there, they started a relationship that has stood the test of time. Kevin also started a relationship with Lewis, but he was closer to Jam. Jam would always invite Kevin to Janet Jackson's concerts and sometimes to his house to get an exclusive first listen to Jackson's songs. One day in '97, he was listening to Jackson's new album, and he loved it so much that it delayed him from signing his $126 million 6-year contract extension. Jimmy Jam said he never missed any home games while Kevin was still with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Once KG was in town, every other thing was rescheduled to a later date. Jimmy also had the same car as KG, a fantastic 600 Mercedes coupe. But probably the most important thing that connects them is the beautiful Brandy Padilla, who is a sister to Jimmy's wife, Lisa. Brandy Alyssa Padilla was born on January 25, 1976 in California. She is a very private person who came into the spotlight when she met and married Kevin Garnett. During a game that had Jimmy Jam, his wife, and Brandy as part of the spectacles, KG threw a failed pass into the crowd and caught a glimpse of his future wife. After the game, the NBA legend phoned Terry Lewis out of respect for Jam to ask about Brandy, and then Lewis told him about the girl and asked that he give Jam a call. During an interview, Jam spoke about how that call went. Quote, "So he calls me. He always calls me J-Rock. He said, 'Hey, J-Rock.' I said, 'What's up, KG?' He said, 'Who is the girl sitting next to your wife?' I said, 'That is her sister, Brandy.' Garnett said, 'Where is she staying?' I said, 'Our house.' He said, 'Word, can I come over?' End quote. The Lovebirds were friends for a long time before making it official, and in 2004 they tied the knot in a private ceremony in California while KG missed the Olympic Games in Athens. They have 2 daughters together, Capri, who was born in 2008, and Cavalli, who was born in 2013. The only details we get about those kids are pictures of them with their parents at various social events. Nevertheless, after being married for 14 years, Brandy actually filed for divorce on July 12, 2018. In the petition, she cited irreconcilable differences and asked to have custody of her kids. According to reports, she asked for spousal support of $146,000 monthly, child support of $46,000, and $300,000 in attorney fees. After a while, the two did agree to take their legal business out of the public eye and they settled in secret. But after this happened, another woman named Nakat Ackman took KG to court in 2022 for allegedly fathering her 2-year-old daughter. She wanted the court to order custody and child support for her young daughter, but this is not to say that Kevin denied having a child with this woman, as she admits that he is already accepted to be a parent of the child. Nevertheless, she wanted a formal order that compels KG to provide child support and insurance, and for KG to start a college fund for their daughter. Nobody knew how this whole thing ended because KG has always done well to keep his love life out of prying eyes. So, aside from rumors of Kevin dating a cheerleader named Chrissy Freiberg at some point, it appears that the NBA legend is currently single. Well, if you enjoyed this story about Kevin Garnett's family life, check out this next shocking family story, and make sure to like the video and subscribe for more.